Hello YouTube and welcome back to Sports Psychology Sunday. Today I want to talk to you about deliberate and perfect practice. Here we have some rope climbing, which for arm wrestling is a perfect example of deliberate but not perfect practice. Because it is not, like you arm wrestle, the grip is entirely different and the muscles and the movements are entirely different. But it is very good for arm wrestling in how it complements the moves. And that is an example of something that is deliberate practice. It is, well thought out, well needed, and serves your purpose well. But it's not necessarily perfect in that it doesn't enhance your capabilities, technique or skill-wise in the sport. So another example of this is running for boxers, because boxing, requires a lot of cardio, and boxers should run a lot because it also, helps you with leg stability and whatever, but it doesn't make you a good boxer in any way. Here we have some, practice at home that I try to, extend to the table. And this is, more of the perfect variation of, perfect practice, where you try to improve your skill and make it as similar as possible to what you really need to do. So this is, a competition move that I practice over and over and over again. But nothing is more perfect than competing, and sparring is basically what comes closest to that. So, either practice competitions or whatever is one of the most perfect practices, but actual competition is the most perfect practice. Of course, it has its own downsides, a risk of injury, not enough volume perhaps, but when it comes to, mental and skill preparation, perfect practice is the best, and you should aim to have a lot of perfect practice. And in general, all your training should be on one of these scales or both. So either very deliberate or very perfect, or a combination of the two. Sometimes, of course, they, balance each other, they're opposites sometimes, but not always. But something that is neither deliberate or perfect should be removed from your training, because it's just a waste of energy, waste of time, and a waste of your sort of budget that could be used towards better things. So, an example, of course, is, well, not of course, if we go by the running example, it is very low risk of, head injuries, and you can do it a lot, and it serves you really well compared to, hard boxing sparring, which is technically and, for the mind, very similar to competition. But if you do it too much, you might get injured, or, injured basically. And also, sometimes what is close to perfect is actually a very bad thing. If you, let's say you spar a lot, but you're always, playing around and going easy, then when, the big day comes, there's a big risk that you can't really focus and you just play around and take it easy. This is something that they talk about in Krav Maga, for example, when you practice taking knives from someone, which is in itself very questionable, but you're not allowed to give the knife back to that person, because if you do that, if you practice that like 10,000 times, you might just take the knife from an assailant and then give it back to them. And you don't want to do almost perfect practice, but have, implement bad habits that will stick with you for a very long time. Arm wrestling wise, this is another example of a very deliberate practice, practicing the upward, backward, rising pressure, which is very important in arm wrestling, but doesn't really get trained enough on the table, in my opinion, especially, the wrist part of the riser, which is very essential, but doesn't really get tested or trained that much on the table. In competitions, it's one of the most key elements of the setup and therefore very important. So in this case, I make a deliberate decision to spend a lot of time to train this movement extra much. So, think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and just realize that you have a total budget of time, energy, and recovery, and make sure that everything is either deliberate or perfect or a combination of the two. And you have to, I repeat, because it's so important, you have to sometimes try to really readdress your training and reevaluate your training, because it's so easy to stray away too far from perfect practice, and that's just going to be a very cold shower when you go to competition. An example in bench press is people who always train without a pause, and sometimes it works for some few individuals, but it is much better, in my opinion, to always train with a competition pause and just eliminate that factor from the stressors that comes with competition. I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to the next Sports Psychology Sunday, which might be an interview. I don't know yet. Thank you so much for everyone who has subscribed. We're up to 71 subscribers, and this makes me very happy. Please continue to like and subscribe. It helps a lot. And have a great day, everybody.